لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. بلغ رسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وكشف الغمة وجاهد في الله حق جهاده. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. نحن متفائلون بسبب قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن الكريم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: ولا تهنوا ولا تهزنوا وأنتم الأعلون إن كنتم مؤمنين. وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في حديث صحيح: يأتي على الناس زمان الصابر فيهم على دينه كالقابض على جمر. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught us to be optimistic in our religion. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has strengthened that notion by providing us an ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has says to not be shaken and not to grieve. And know that surely you will have the upper hand if only you are the believers. And we are optimistic today at a time where it may not on the outside seem like there may be a lot of reasons to be optimistic. You might think that, why should I be optimistic? Look at what's going on in Gaza. We have seen the situation get worse. And we have seen what's happening maybe today or tomorrow at any time where another imminent attack could happen. But the Prophet ﷺ and Islam taught us to see things on the brighter side, to see the glass as half full, not half empty. And one of the greatest surprises and the greatest reasons to be optimistic is something we did not expect. We were afraid that what would happen to the youth, the Shabab al-Muslimin. What will happen to the youth? We were worried that maybe they will change their name. We were worried that they will lose their faith. We were worried that they would not be able to hold on to their faith. And the Prophet ﷺ told us that there will be a time where people that are trying to be patient upon their religion will be people that were holding on to a hot coal or an ember. It will be very hard. At that time, it will be very hard to hold on to your faith. And in this time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reveal to us the power of Islam. Where the youth, the Shabab, have waited for the leaders of the world to say something, to do something. They have waited for the adults of the Ummah to do something or say something. And then finally now we see that all across the United States and across the world, people, the youth, the students in college have come out and are protesting throughout the United States and throughout the world. And they're protesting because they know what is the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how He chooses people and how He decides who will be victorious. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُتَّقِينَ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us who He loves. And these are the people of taqwa. And He told us, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُقْسِطِينَ, He loves the people who uphold justice. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ التَّوَّابِينَ وَيُحِبُّ الْمُتَطَهِّرِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the people who make tawbah and purify themselves. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُتَوَكِّلِينَ. وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الصَّابِرِينَ. So they look at all of these ayat, which say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the people of justice, people that believe in Him and have full trust in Him, and are patient with His decree. And then they looked at the ayahs of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not love. وَاللَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْفَسَادِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not live like corruption, where people take power and use it to manipulate others and hurt people. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُعْتَدِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like the transgressors, who when they have power, they transgress the limits of all law and human dignity. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْتَكْبِرِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't love the people who are arrogant, who deny what is true. That is arrogance. To have kibr so much in your heart where something of the truth is shown and you deny it. So they went and they became people who have left the dunya. Meaning these people, the students, have left possibly graduating from their colleges, being imprisoned for voicing their opinion, and physically hurt as well, because they believed in Islam and they believed in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. And they also knew the danger of doing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not love. And the Prophet ﷺ said that the shabab were the ones that were with him. حَالَفَنِي الشَّبَابِ وَخَالَفَنِي الشُّيُوخِ. He said the shabab, I was lucky with the shabab. I was so blessed with the shabab. But the youth, the elders, they failed me. Meaning that the Quraysh, the elders of the Quraysh, they were so against him. But who was the one that invited him to Medina? The youth. Who were the ones that quickly accepted his message? They were the youth. So he said this statement. And we see that the Prophet ﷺ brought the youth to his majlis. You know, we feel good if we have a youth director and we have a separate thing for the youth. He told them, sit down in my majlis. And when the first time the Muslims were to meet the Romans, Ahlul Rum, he chooses a young man from the youth, Usama bin Zayd, in Balqa. He says, no, you are the leader of this army. And the Prophet ﷺ soon died after he made this proclamation, and Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu was the first Khalifa. And in his army you have great Sahabi. But he said, no, this is what the Prophet ﷺ said. He trusted in him. He sat in his majlis. He chose him. This is who will be the leader. And of course the Muslims won when they met Ahlul Rum for the first time in Balqa. Why? Because he let the youth flourish. He let them make some mistakes. He knew that as part of the maturation and the maturity of a human being is to make mistakes. People are not the same their whole life. And also we should be careful of each other, because sometimes you see a person, maybe he makes a mistake. Or maybe from that person who's not a good person, a great youth comes. So we have to be careful on what we say to one another. We know one of the most cursed people in Islam was Abu Lahab. Tabbat yada Abi Lahab. We have a surah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that Abu Lahab will be destroyed. But did you know that Durra bint Abu Lahab, Abi Lahab, was the daughter of Abi Lahab? And she became Muslim and a Sahabi, a youth who saw the truth and left the falsehood. And imagine reading the Quran and it mentions your father. Ikrimah ibn Abu Jahl, a great Sahabi, the son of Abu Jahl, became a great Sahabi, and the Prophet ﷺ told the Sahaba that don't say anything about Abu Jahl in front of him. To honor him, to honor this great Sahaba. So we cannot give up quickly on each other and on our youth. Because the hope that we see is from the youth. That is the hope that we see. At a time when we thought we wouldn't see it from them. So that's why we're optimistic. Because in this difficult time, where it's hard to hold on to our Islam like a hot coal, the youth have come out and said, we are not afraid. And so what is the big deal about protesting? Why is it, what's the history of this in our country? Student activism is part and parcel of this nation. When you study the history of this country, you study the activism of the youth. In the 1960s, the youth came out into the colleges because they were protesting, this strife between Aswad and Abyad, black and white, race relations. There was a lot of protesting in the 60s, and it led to the Civil Rights Acts that gave equal rights to black, African American, and others like us who are also considered brown, and they can put us as black. And even the Jews were forced to drink from a different fountain. And because of this student protest, in the 1960s, many legislation was passed to abolish these laws. In the 70s, the students came out again. And in one university, Kent State, they were shot and killed because they were protesting the war in Vietnam. After many years of protesting, President Nixon decided to leave Vietnam because of these protests. We saw it again in the 1980s because of South Africa, which was an apartheid state. The students came out, and South Africa was removed as an occupying nation. So what is it that the youth are protesting now? Over 1,000, possibly 1,000 youth have been arrested because they are protesting the awqaf, the waqf that the universities have with the state of Israel. They are protesting to divest their investments from a state that is causing the death and destruction of women and children. So when you see them protesting, that's what they're protesting for, that we must divest. The universities must stop investing in an apartheid state, because billions and billions of dollars, over $50 billion, is just the waqf of Harvard University, and is being used to empower one nation, and they're protesting that this should stop. So in the second half of the khutbah, we will talk about how we as adults and we as Muslims can help in this movement, and what we can do to help the people of Gaza, and also to help our shabab in this country and throughout the world. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So inshallah we will finish this khutbah by just reminding ourselves quickly that the youth is a very important state of life. It is where they have a lot of energy, and they don't have too much baggage. They're not worried about their job, they're not worried about their family, they're worried about doing what's right. And this is something that Ibrahim alayhi salam did. قَالُوا سَمِعْنَا فَتَى. That's what they said about him in the Quran, that we heard a youth saying, and his name was Ibrahim. So this youth movement, we need to first educate the youth with our experience and our wisdom and our resources. That what are your rights, and what can get you in trouble, and what can protect you. And if you get in trouble, we have a whole community behind you that will protect you. And we have to have these trainings. You can bring care to your masjid, and they will train you on what your rights are. And we need to give money to these movements where if one of our children goes to jail for a protest, we can get them out immediately and get them absolved of any crime, because it should not be a crime to speak your conscience. But as a community, we have to have their back. We have to give money to these institutions that will get them out and absolve them of anything, because they threaten them from being able to graduate from university. They say you can't take your finals. Why? And many times they're protesting in a legal area, and the police come and they push them into an area that's illegal, and then they say, now we're going to arrest you. We have to hold the police accountable. We have to hold everyone accountable that is doing this unjust practice. We have to come with our money, come with our resources, and unite as a community to help them. تُجَاهِدُونَ فِي سَبِيلِهِ بِأَمْوَالِكُمْ وَأَنفُسِكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that struggle in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, first with your mal, before your anfus. First with your money, before yourself, subhanAllah. When you look at the ayat of struggle and jihad, it says first with your mal, before anfus, subhanAllah. That this is the true jihad, is to garner our money to protect the youth, who are risking much more than we are. They're risking their future to graduate and to have a diploma, to get a job, to be censured. They're risking it all for Ahlul Gaza, for the people of Gaza, because they feel that they can't do, there's something has to be done. And they're sick and tired of waiting for the leaders from this Muslim country, or the administration from this country, or that country, or the adults from this country, because they see nothing happening. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless our youth, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this great ni'am and blessing, to give us these great youth that are within us. Youth that have more shaja'ah, more courage than we had. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us courage like their courage. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase their courage. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove any harm from them. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give them the best of this dunya, to give them the best degrees, to give them the best diplomas and the best jobs. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove this dhulm that has been put upon this world, on the people of Gaza, on their children, on their old, on their women, on their sick, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove this as soon as possible. Allahumma innahum jarha fadawhum asha fasqihim. Allahumma ansur ikhwanana al-mustadafina fi Gaza ya Rabb al-alamin. اللهم بدل خوفهم أمنا يا ذا الجلال والعزة. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا تقبل دعاء. ربنا افرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. عباد الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. وقم الصلاة.